Hi, my name is Bernard Salt. In my column in the Weekend Australian this weekend, I talk about a series of notebooks that my late mother left me. This was her pride and joy, a series of notebooks that she used during the 1950s and 1960s and even into the 1970s to run the household's finances. And when you look at these notebooks, you can see a very finely balanced budget and prioritised very much so. So it would start with the rent. We lived, of course, in a housing commission house, public housing at the time. And the rent, when you go through these notebooks, was in fact £3 in 1959. My father's wage, according to these notebooks, was £15, so that's 20%. So 20% of, that is the post-tax income, was enough to raise a family of 6 kids. In country Victoria, but it was very important that we had access to public housing. I don't think it could have been done without public housing. The other thing that we had at that time was a quarter-acre block, that's 1,000 square metres, which was more than sufficient for a vast vegetable patch, some fruit trees and even a chook shed as well, almost quite self-sufficient on that block. But when you go through these notebooks, what strikes me is firstly they start off with a nib dipped in ink, then into biro. It starts with pounds, shillings and pence, and you can see that shift into dollars, of course. And just the prioritisation of the budget. It was rent, then always meat, milk, bread, groceries, fruit, and other types of expenses. In fact, this was very much my mother's pride and joy. In fact, she had about 30 or so of those. About a dozen have filtered through to me. She gave them away to various grandchildren. I think she saw them as an insight into how a household was run in the 1950s and 1960s. And in many respects, I do see it as an important series of social documents tracking the way in which a single income household in country Victoria managed their finances at that time. Today, of course, we have apps and whatever to track these sorts of things, but I wonder whether in fact there's not an advantage. It's a bit like photograph albums. We've got so many more photographs these days, but are we really going to store them for a generation into the future? You know, these notebooks are 60 plus years old and they've survived. Tapping away at an app today is not really going to survive 6 decades into the future. In either case, it's an interesting insight into the cultural history of middle class, and I would say even lower middle class, bachelor class Australia 2 or even 3 generations ago.